and your idea of saying, it's not, I would say my culture. I respect your culture enough to allow you to express it the way you think it should be.
Well, it was interesting with Good Times before the Jeffersons. When that show hit, there you had John Amos and Louise representing the first African-American mother and father, parent figures on television. And with that came an enormous sense of responsibility. So that made them, in one sense, people they were not intending to be, judges. So those of us who were writing the show, when this was, African-American writers and white writers, we were all collaborating. But we would come in with something, my mind goes to Thelma, who was one of the prettiest women ever to grace a television series. And she was 16 or turning 16, boyfriends and everything else, and we wanted to do a show about a boy hitting on her. And was she going to go to bed with him? Was she thinking about how much would she talk about it with her family? I don't remember the exact episode, but all of that was grist for that mill, for that story. And Esther Roll didn't want to do it. I mean, she only heard that we were working on the idea. And it was understandable. She was representing something for the first time. And this was something tricky, maybe we would get it the wrong way. Anyway, she wasn't cast to be that, but she was a living human being, and she had a mind that, there's no way she could worry about that. So we reached the point, it took us weeks and weeks and weeks to get that into production because Esther was so sure that it was wrong to go near that subject. We finally had a meeting one day when I said, look, you guys are black, I'm white, I don't know what you know about growing up in America as an African-American person. You provide all of the, and I'm sure we said this on the Jefferson show, you provide all of the patina, who you are as African Americans. We don't know. We didn't live through that. That's what you bring naturally. But I said to Esther, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm a parent, I have to play all these roles too. And some decisions I have to make that you're going to have to live with because I feel I'm capable of making those decisions. It has nothing to do with that patina, what it means to be African American. It has to do with what it means to be a parent. This is the subject that this family should be talking about. Now we did that show, and she lived with that, and it was terrific. Thelma was wonderful, and it was a living experience. But those were difficult roles. Suddenly to be represented.
Which this lady knows well now, because was that the first role, Miss Kim Fields, was it as, I know you had commercials, but was that the first television role in Good Times as Penny's friend?
No.
Was that,
No,
she's been acting since the baby.
But my contribution to that portion of the conversation, though, is when you talk about difficult roles and difficult characters and storylines. My mother played Janet's abusive mother on Good Times.
My mother is Chip wonderful.
Abusive mama?
And I remember, I wasn't on that episode, but I remember all of the work that not only that Mom and Jan did to prepare for those scenes and just everything that went on with that. But, to tackle the issues, of child abuse, no one was talking about that, especially in a sitcom. And to be such a character that would leave a tremendous footprint on the landscape of television. Not to mention, you know, the impact that it would have on actors. But I mean, just to have the, whether it's foresight or courage, you know, to write these characters and these situations and these storylines and not shrink from it, but to embrace it with such an enormous amount of integrity and dignity and still have the nerve to have humor. I mean, it's just, you know, people have said words like miracle and something from above, and I certainly can attest to, even at that very young age, being a part of it from there. Never mind when I got to be on Good Times, never mind Facts of Life. And when I was, you know, 9, and then on a normal show, I was like, what? You know, and I mean, just, again, the impact that this man still has on television, not just because of reruns, but as a content provider. Who do I aspire to write like? Who do I aspire to produce like? You know, we work with a lot of people, and yet there's a very, very small handful that can, you know, just even be in the atmosphere because of what you've created.
You know, I want to, because I think what you're saying is really important, and I want to think about the source for that. So having read even this and just been, you know, I tried to put it down the other night, it made me late to bed, so, you know, I was literally just wanted to keep going. But I think what's striking about the genesis of that, in your childhood, I thought it was so marvelous in the book, how you talked about what happened with your family, with your father, with the breakup of the family, and how you used comedy when you lived with your uncle and the aunt. And so you felt that I have to be funny, that this is, I had to make a contribution because I'm sort of like, you know, the fifth child out here at the dinner table. And so the way that you made yourself sort of in the family that was not really your immediate family, and that feeling of aloneness was through humor. You kept them laughing. Can you say a little bit? And I see that when we're talking about where the suffering and the humor all comes together in this work you created, seems to be to have the genesis in this childhood that had quite a bit of this family suffering and ways in which you had to make yourself, you know, an identity to cope, to be in that experience. Can you speak to that for just a little bit?
Well, it's, you know, the comedy just lives everywhere.
Right.
Now, I don't remember how old I was, and I don't even remember whose funeral it was. But the two people suffering the most were up front. The body was being lowered, and one of the people started to scratch his ass. Now, I'm a kid, and I'm watching this, you know, in this very serious moment, and that was funny. It exists. I mean, but I remember that. It's a hallmark moment for me as a kid. I just thought it was funny.
The book is full of literally moments like this. Literally, you were like, are you serious?
We call them scratch your ass moments.
I'm not going to say it, but literally. So,
I'm sorry, because I know it's not my job, but I've been dying to ask this question. You have written such, and developed, like we've already established, such timeless material and such timeless characters. And it seems like history repeats itself. So it seems like when we see certain episodes of Good Times that airs, and it's, you know, those serious episodes of Good Times, and it's like, how did they know back then that we would still be dealing with this today? You know, when Michael gets beat up and he comes home and, you know, and it's like, that just happened. Robin Meade just reported a story just like that. You know, the things that are going on in the world today.
But human nature is human nature. It doesn't change. whether the problems are not exactly the same, they exist, similarly. There's nothing I can think of, none of the subjects that we tackled in those years aren't alive and well in some part of the world, or, it's happening every moment. We're the same.
Yeah, it's almost
I wish it were different. I wish we learned faster, but I think all the time of the promises that were made by our founding fathers in the founding papers, in the Constitution, in the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, all those promises. Now, I give us credit for continuing on the path to deliver it, but it's very clear when you look around the world, or look around our world, America, we haven't delivered on all those promises, and we got a long way to go. So, the problems are still there to be dealt with, to be talked about. That's the one thing, as somebody who had a lot to do with these shows, I can be sure of. Again and again, I've heard through the years, and I heard many times today, we watched as a family and we talked when it was over. We always had conversations when it was over. Well, that's what the whole American experiment is about. Talking together, finding the solutions to the problems, and being helped by literature and theater and so forth.
Mr. Skips, you were,
It's almost like the Bible says, as it was then, is now, and ever shall be. It just keeps repeating itself.
To say that the Bible says in the beginning was the Word. And as I watched the episode, I can't help but talk about the craft of the writing. And really the episode, what appeared to be seamless was well rehearsed. That timing, from the time she almost fell over the sofa, those choices were an example of someone, probably the director saying, not good enough, let's try another. Not good enough, let's do it again. And it's so aware as I look from my own standards, that the standards is the gold standard. That's why those shows are timeless and they live on.
but yet they look spontaneous and natural and authentic and unrehearsed, if you will. This is the art of great performance. Well, so then we got a clip, I think, to do.
I can only imagine how many sessions you guys had. And digressed with the table reads, because you had such a cast of incredible engineers of the reality that they were selling. But the part of the reality is, or the reality from my perspective, is we aren't slowing down. We now are living in a time where we're not as accountable. There are so many options. Just go back to the simple fact that we didn't have as many options to click. You remember that old TV where you had to take your eyes. We didn't have as many options, and we were forced to speak. We were forced to be a village, and you were narrating the story.
Well, if America's about anything, it's about excess. And it's excessive, the amount of, I hear, 11 times a week, you mean you're not watching Empire, Scandal, this one, that one, The Affair, and when I do happen on them, they're wonderful shows. There's an awful lot of great stuff that's happening, but it's in excess. We do well in excess.
Sure. I think we have a clip, I think, that it's from George's The Jeffersons, and it's from that engagement.